What is up, everyone? This is GenZ-Gab, and this is Sara G here. And this is episode 4, season 2, and we are gonna do different sense of mental health, like I've talked about in the past. But I'm recording this Wednesday, and as everyone knows, on Wednesday, December 14th, a big icon and light in our social media lives, in anyone's lives, like whether or not you followed Stephen Twitch Boss on social media or whatever, even if he popped up on your For You page, you instantly felt happy. And the reason I'm talking about him is because he's someone that even I was so shocked, which I mean everyone is, but I was so shocked, okay? I don't get emotional over a lot of this stuff. Like, I just can't believe it. Like, he truly was like nothing I had ever seen. And I actually had seen him on So You Think You Can Dance, okay? Like, I have inadvertently seen him through so much and yet not really follow him. Like, he's one of those people I unfortunately thought I was following. And I know people go, well, you followed like this and that, and yeah, it doesn't. I'm just gonna say it. If you are a person who didn't actually follow him, you are still a valid fan. If you remember him on all the things, he was on Ellen, and even though that goes up and down, the world knew who Stephen Boss Twitch was. And the problem that I'm saying is that he had it all according to what we saw. And I know this goes back and forth on all those things about what we see is not always what it appears. And I know I've been very curmudgeonly, very pissy, very annoyed with a lot of influencers, etc. And you know what? It's true. Especially because, I mean, we can always compare ourselves and whatnot, but at the end of the day, I just see this as another opportunity, even for me to reflect. And yes, I'm not where I thought I'd be. I complain plenty, and I am also the friend that always feels like nobody wants to keep in touch with. I am the strong friend. I am the friend that checks up on everything and the person that really doesn't need to be worried about. And again, this is not me trying to get a bunch of people to pity party me or me. It's just who I am. And again, I think it goes into my ADHD, OCD, just some trauma response to some things that I personally have gone through, more as an outsider looking in, but it's, just saying you never really know what someone is going through. And right now, my heart really goes out for his family, his 3 kids, his wife, and anyone around him. But the thing is, yes, even 2 days ago, he was posting all this stuff with dancing, etc. And here's the thing. I also want to touch on something while we are speaking about Monday mood and mental health. And I know it's very not happy-go-lucky in this moment, and you can hear that in my voice, and I understand that. But here's the thing. Aaron Carter, even a month ago, where we talked about his own struggles, again, there is so many podcasts out there talking about this stuff. But can I just, again, emphasize how we as a society, as I've seen multiple creators say this, and multiple people of color, etc., Black men especially don't get the help they deserve. I will be posting the statistics. I will be posting a therapist that I follow, because I personally believe that they have way more of, obviously, knowledge than I ever could, but that they have been talking about this for years on end, and I firmly believe that they deserve to have their space held open and get their facts out there. Again, I am speaking about this because it's so important that mental health matters. Men's mental health matters, okay? We have been, like I've mentioned multiple times, I follow Man Enough, the podcast, and just, Justin Baldoni and his whole crew have been phenomenal in opening that dialogue. And yes, I know, again, it's still done by a white guy, uh, and produced a lot, but there's still so much more, and it's still filled with great guests and diversity. And I know there is such a nuance to this, and me speaking about it and probably detailing most of my podcast to this is because it matters so much. It matters so much, especially in the winter months. And again, when you're the person that people kind of, take, I'm not going to say we take certain people more for granted, but we do never take anyone. And I think that we need to consider this. Like, you're not going to be besties with everyone, but even a sheer acquaintance that you have, maybe you should check up on them. Even if you're in like a fight and in a one-sided relationship or whatever. I just mean now, don't go overboard or don't go insanely like back to someone that's hurt you super badly. I'm just speaking on like the levels, but there is so many nuances that go on with this specific topic. Okay, like I understand where a lot of people come from with it. And I also understand how, when you say put up boundaries with certain people, how hard it is. And especially, look, therapy is talked about in white culture. I'm just going to speak on this kind of a little bit, but it's also spoken in different levels of white culture. Again, I am from a Irish American family. I am third generation, okay? I reflect way more similarly to, Hispanics, Latino, and, the Balkan culture as much Mediterranean, where you don't talk about it, you go hush hush. And I'm not saying one way or another it's right, but even yesterday, there was a comedian, he's Greek and Italian, who was posting about, like, a gossip culture and it's so true, but the way that he presented it was like, oh my gosh, all the elderly family members in the back of the church gossiping. And he didn't quite get the joke, and then I said, like, watch anything from here, X, Y, and Z. And even the family members that have been to therapy, it's still hush, 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 hush. Like, nobody talks. It's like, oh, we don't talk about Bruno. There's nothing wrong. Even though, again, my family has had, like many others, but have had a lot of issues. And you can probably draw the conclusion. I'm not saying one way or another, it's not the same, whatever. But I'm just saying this nuanced topic and how many layers go with it. And just the fact of the matter is, though, Boss Twitch, sorry, my brain shut off. I meant, Stephen Boss Twitch needed to do better for him. We need to do better for so many. And again, it's so nuanced, but it just is heartbreaking. And you know how I might be a little judgmental about especially influencers, and when they talk about their mental health, yes, I'm very much happy for it, and with all the people that we've lost. But the reason, though, that I'm still a little angry at them is just because, yes, they can say one thing, and I know not everything's a pretty picture, and another, but it also seems like they're always trying to find a multi-level marketing scheme or some sort of production thing to do, like I talked to Laura 2 weeks ago. There's just so much that goes on with it, and then, I am constantly I'm just talking about social media in general at this point, moving on more from that Monday mood, but social media in general, and like I said, it is a toxin that if there's any toxins that you have to remove from your life, it's not bread. It is not anything you're probably eating unless you're like actually like autoimmune like me and issues or whatever. But separately, the things that you actually are a toxin to you or should like a leech is probably some people you surround yourself with and social media. And I agree that, because again, ADHD makes me a dopamine, need that serotonin, like that quick fix if I get this and that. And now TikTok has been plunging in my face. So of course my brain goes, what? And, even that's hard. But I think back, again, TMZ, I used to probably want to be one of them. Now I don't. But TMZ is all over poor Twitch and asking him about Ellen, and he's answering it like a great answering deal, But it's just, you can see the pain in his eyes and his voice, and you can see a lot of stuff looking back that you might have done. But because he kept everything together, that was the big piece. So I'm just mentioning this again because I truly believe that we as a society are just so hyper focused on all ourselves that we don't take a step back to see if other people need help. And yes, I am the person that bombards and floods people maybe more than I should. I try not to. I've been working on that. But again, like I said, I've noticed a lot within people who have the ADHD, OCD, autism, etc., all in that neurodivergent community. We have that sensitivity, rejection, all that stuff, but we feel the emotion in the society way more. So yes, we get extra sensitive if people don't respond, like compared to the rest of the world. And I understand that, but it doesn't mean that we're going to stop doing what we're going to do. And I know, especially because it's been brought to my attention on some occasions, that I'm overwhelming, and I try not to be. And even if it's been said in the past, it still sticks with me all the time. I can take some criticism, but when you're trying to be yourself all the time, when people say just stop and be yourself, it's very frustrating, because when you feel like yourself is an overwhelming person with ADHD and OCD, it makes it more anxiety than depression, and it just rolls into this never-ending cycle. And I'm only talking about this from my perspective, more of just, instead again of New Year's resolutions that I'm going to try. I'm just going to keep trying to work on making me happy and still being myself. And I know that I say that all the time, and people say, at least you've always done to the beat of your own drum, but still not really. I was thinking about this the other day too, how much we try to conform in society. Again, I tried to like a bunch of movies that people liked, and even I rewatched Stick It as an adult. And I just realized my ADHD made me hate this movie and love this movie. And other people are talking about, where it was, a time in their life where but the humor is so cringy, I'm sorry. I feel like I'm, Wednesday Addams watching it with Legally Blonde, and that's just it. And we all grow out in certain situations, and yes, I was the goody two-shoes growing up, but then I realized how much that it has to do with generational trauma as well. And I'm just speaking on all of these things as the holidays are coming up. You never know what might trigger you. And it's just time to open up these conversations and to really start thinking and acknowledging going forward on what exactly, because we're not all gonna be perfect all the time. That's insane. That's never gonna happen. But just something to consider. Also, fun thing that I have some news update, which I don't have a set time or whatever for this one right now, but do you know TikTok, the Truth Doctor, Courtney Tracy, will be on the podcast at some point, and we'll be talking about mental health, which is really important at the start of the year. Please comment anything that you want us to talk about, because we're in the middle of scheduling, and I'm going to be taking a break for a vacation and just the holidays. So between now and, first or second week of January, hopefully, leave your comment, tell us what you want to hear, and that way we can try to answer what you want to know. As well as, you can catch up while I'm gone for the next week and a half, 2 weeks of Gen Z. You can check out my former interview with Brooke Alex, the singer-songwriter from American Song, one of my friends' acquaintances. She also talked about her AAPI heritage as well, and I still think that that was one of my favorite of the first season, as well as it was the second episode, and she was my first guest. As well as you can also talk and listen to Laura High on the podcast from 2 weeks ago, where I interviewed her and got to the understanding of what sperm donation and donor conception is. If you want to know more about the infertility industry, please go and follow her. And she has just some great insight. And also, again, in the month of December, we talk a lot about, World War II, all that stuff. Her grandfather has a lot of stories, so please check her out. And Lily Ebert, and so many more are on TikTok, and you should get them and hear their stories. Like she said, it's a very important time because a lot of these survivors are not going to be around within the next 10 years, as sad as that sounds. It's just the unfortunate truth. And there are so many more that I could list, but I just wanted to give you kind of the rundown. And again, I think that some of the best psychologists on TikTok are Dr. Kim Sage. There's also, again, the Truth Doctor, Courtney Tracy, who I'm, planning to have on. And, gosh, I'm trying to think of all the other. There's an ADHD doc, etc. And I just think that it's so important, especially with the holiday season and the new year coming up, that we don't just sweep it under the rug. We get it. It happens. And I think, again, just the whole why do I want to call him Jay Twitch? Oh, yeah, because there's another okay. So here's why I keep effing up so freaking bad on this. I follow on TikTok 2 Indigenous creators, and if you're not following them yet, you should. Jay Witchy and Twitchy. And now, of course, with Stephen Twitch Boss, my brain immediately, inadvertently goes to those two. And by the way, you need to follow Witchy, because she is, just breaking down all the indigenous cultures, especially in Mexico. And then Twitchy, she is actually talking about Appalachian and the whole stolen land and reclaiming that right now. And I think it's just important that we continue to talk about these issues regardless of what time of year. But this is, again, the Christmas season. And like I said last time, and this is not paid partnership, but I have links below in my bio from the last one on information to, get Christmas present, holiday present, whatever you want and celebrate. So holiday presents from these specific organizations, businesses, small-owned businesses, Iranian business. There's one from Barbados that I mentioned that I got an awesome pair of earrings with last week. And by the way, Barbadian is the thing that I always get confused about, and I mention this a lot of times, but because even I've heard interviews with Rihanna saying this, but whole thing about, she's like, I'm Barbadian, but I'm Bajan, or Bahan, and it's like, again, I think of Baja Blast. I just do. I'm a horrible person, but that's how I do. And the problem is I also follow one of those San Filippo families, which, again, not another place that you should donate to this holiday season for clinical trials for all the types, but this is besides the point. So, and again, if any of them are listening, San Filippo, I am always willing to talk about, it's because it's a similar to a neurological disorder like Parkinson's, Alzheimer's. I have a family member with Parkinson's, so I understand a lot of the stuff. But it's in children, and it's a metabolic, there's attenuated, there's a bunch of things that could go on with that and talked about with that, and as well as just, you also should just keep in mind, before commenting on something, the mental health as well of these parents and caregivers and families because it's a lot to handle. And the reason they're on social media, which even Mom Uncharted has agreed with, is because they don't show their kids in their like worst moments. First of all, they show some of their appearances because it has some physical appearances that not a lot of people would know. They have strong eyebrows, big eyes, and big lips. It's one of those things that you see. And again, the reason though that I kind of went off on a tangent was just because though one of these families, they also have a teenager, and the teenager is obsessed with Baja Blast, and it's become like a joke on their family and their page. Occasionally I'll see someone comment about it, but again, less about them, more just about the parents' journey. And it's just so funny because I just think about that, and that's the only thing I can think about. And I go, it's a terrible joke also because part of that joke is from King of the Hill. And yeah, so I just keep going on about these similarities, these differences in life, and you're never guaranteed anything. But again, I've been stuck in this rut for so long trying to figure out how I'm going to get from point A to point B. And then I realized some other things. One person that I follow that I know of who keeps getting banned on Instagram, he finally signed with a great agency, and again, this person's been working hard very long, and it just goes to show you never know what's gonna happen, when it's gonna happen, but still, it's just kind of like your brain is always like trying to rush it. And that's where, again, I go back to, as I've mentioned constantly, Laura, but her advice, people, you need to listen to her. You need to follow her because she actually gives out good life advice. Yes, she's a comedian, but actually comedians are the best type of therapists when you can't afford therapy. As well as follow John Marco Sorensi, because he has a lot of relatable moments and unrelatable moments, and he's hilarious. And he just had Roy Wood Jr. on from The Daily Show on his podcast. Like, okay, go off. Although Roy's mad at The Daily Show right now because of Trevor Noah leaving, so that should be interesting. And maybe it's not mad as much more as just a joke pettiness. But, everything's evolving, and I kind of think, if it wasn't for Trevor Noah and Colbert late night shows, I don't think I would have made it during that first round of COVID. And, with all that goes on these past couple years, I get it. Things are not the same, and I constantly complain and gripe about all the things that I haven't done. But then I start to go back, especially today, I've been like, well, all the things that I have done. And you know what? One thing I am kind of like embarrassed about is, even though I want to email all these people, but I don't want to take away from their time, but this is what I learned how to do even in college, when I was doing communications and reporting stuff, because you have to go out and get, information, real sources, understanding of things. It's not just you do your own research. No, you do research online, but you go to people to get real answers. I'm going to just state this one more time, that I've had a lot of health stuff come up, and I don't know if it's because I got COVID, if it's because of just past other issues that I've had between ADHD, etc., diet culture, you name it, all those things. But I do think I got COVID, like I said, back in 2020 when we didn't know what it was. And I think it ricocheted off all these different things. However, as you can see, like I talk about, I'm still on this Ehlers-Danlos thing because everyone tells me how rare it is. But the funny thing is, I follow someone who's a hypermobile specialist on TikTok, and I think she's from England, so it's a little different. But she showed me the checklist, and I could do all the checklist stuff, so I'm gonna be looking into that soon. But what I'm gonna say is that the whole thing about COVID ricocheting off everything, I think it just made also so many people, especially elder Gen Z like me, feel like we don't have social skills, even though I didn't inherently have social skills before, because, again, I'm a weirdo, neurodivergent human being. And at this point, though, I own it, and I see things clearer now. Before, I was unmedicated, I had no idea what I was doing, like a lot of people, but I think, like, when you take a step back, and you see how many more, and suddenly it's so relatable and whatnot, and it's like, everybody's a little bit ADHD. Well, yeah, more people are, but see, the thing is that it's really hard because people are now more self-diagnosing, which is valid because suddenly we have this oyster worldwide information to get at. And I know it's very complicated in how I talk and explain things, but hey, I am not made for the neurotypical world. And yeah, so that's fun. And if you don't quite get me, that's fine. I don't get myself half the time. But the only reason that I'm speaking all this much on it is because, again, Twitch was a phenomenal dancer. He had this life. He built it. It took a while. But even the people who have somewhat achieved it all, you never know what they're going through. And I just wanted to state that once again. We never know what people are going through. Even if the people seem like an open book, there's stuff that even open books like me keep in the dark because it doesn't either concern me or it's not my story or it's just something personally that people don't want to share. People don't have to share everything, every aspect of their life. People don't have to share everything. And I know people are going to be like, what does that mean? That becomes so redundant. But what I'm trying to state, as I've stated before, how about we start making comments more on personalities, jokes, whatever, than bodies. So that's another thing I'm hoping for 2023 is that there's less of videos and body checking and all that, which again, you can follow what the actual Fork podcast for more. Diet Culture Rebel, Andy Does Healthy, Eliana Arfred, who is, I probably botched her last name. Sorry about that. But there are so many unique and intelligent dietitians out there who are non-diet dietitians. There's the ADHD dietitian that I have learned so much from. And I think that if we put that best foot forward, those dietitians find food freedom. They all went through their own breaking up with diet culture, breaking up with the body image posting, all that stuff. And Danae Mercer with her always showing off the filter and whatever. Now I can spot that within even influencers, and I feel even more bad. And people can say to me, why are you talking about all of this? Why are you running it into the ground? Because it matters so much, and because holidays are coming up, and like I said last time, it's not New Year, New Me, okay? That mantra needs to end. And again, even Raven Simone broke up with diet culture. She even posted on video on TikTok about how people are saying oh, she shouldn't be on Disney Channel. Here's the thing. I rewatch Raven's Home. I rewatch That's So Raven. And by the way, their stuff still works. And it's not one of those cringy new series. And she's got a lot going on. But here's the thing that I take away, which I loved from her thing. It doesn't matter. She's happily married. She's a producer, executive director, all those things. She writes some of the episodes of Raven's Home. She lost 50 pounds of, fat, as she put it. But she also said as, not in the typical way because she's been listening more. She hasn't done it the way that people want the typical way, but she's also owning it and explaining to people where she stands. So that's good. And yeah. So it's where we are in life. And I think that we need to create that importance that goes along with it. Because of the situation, because we need to acknowledge that as well. And I'm only touching on her is because she was also phenomenal when I was 5 or 6 years old, maybe even 7. It might have been when I was 7 too, because I can't remember season 2 versus season. But the look episode, I remember asking my mom and dad why. She was pretty, she was out there, she was just herself, and it was phenomenal. Even Chelsea, who was the thinner one, wasn't the size 0, size 2 that was kind of scary around for the 2000s. I was growing up as a little kid in the early 2000s, and the funny thing is it was the mid 2000s suddenly I was seeing more of the really skinny culture and what was really bothering and effed up my brain. And I think that it's just important again that we touch on this because there's so many, and especially again with all the ageism, size, fat phobia that goes on, I've talked about multiple times on this channel on with other people. I just want to emphasize it again. I wish that this could have been a funny, like, lighthearted before the holiday podcast. I really do. But the problem is, this is GenZ-Gab, where I talk about anything and everything, what's going on in current events, what's going on in the world, entertainment, etc. Yes, I can deliver lines that are funny, or I can be sarcastic and, just be me. But the problem is that, unfortunately, stuff goes on in this world, and I'm trying to explain it as, like, the perspective that I bring, that I see, or the perspective that my guests can see. And yes, I brought on some millennials more so than Gen Z, but it at least brings and opens up that conversation of what I, as a Gen Z, see versus how the millennials see it. And it's so different, but it's good because then we can come together and figure out from there. So, yeah. And in the spirit of the holidays, I'm going to once again touch on just some of my favorite holiday specials and classics. And then we will see you start of January. So I'm going to talk a little bit about just the holiday specials, the Christmas specifically. Again, I was raised Catholic. I'm more atheist agnostic now, but it still doesn't mean that I don't sometimes like to listen to music or, TV specials, as well as I just want to touch on again, though, that a lot of Christmas music was not written by Christians. So just wanted to put that out there in case anybody was about to be like this or that. And like, no. And I'm gonna say happy holidays. And also I'm touching again quickly separately about, again, emailing out, talking to people, whatever. My mom's boss, who I've talked about constantly on here, a force of nature. She was the nicest, kindest human being, but she was a force of nature. She said it doesn't hurt to try, and you should always try, and you should always do what you need to do to help others, etc. And she was just amazing, and she would send out her holiday cards almost every year, and that's where it's just, again, this year not so much, unfortunately. But again, I've learned a lot through her. A majority of my mom's work was Jewish at one point, and you learn little bits of things along the way, and I still stand by that some holiday specials should expand more on that as well. Like Rugrats was ahead of its time with Passover and Hanukkah episodes, so that, as well as they did a perfect blend, I'd say, because the family, especially Tommy Pickles' family, was half and half. So I think for kids who were in an interfaith family, that worked out well. But I wanted to say their Santa episode, where even Angelica never really fully gets the grasp of being nice for the rest of the time, but that's in and of itself. The Hey Arnold Christmas specials, the Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, all those CGI older stop motion, Year Without Santa Claus. The Santa Clauses I've almost finished watching. Again, I love Santa Claus 2 was the best when I was little, because I think it was just like, I don't know why, but I think that was the best one out of the trilogy. And you can see even Steve Martin poke at Martin Short at the recent videos of SNL, making fun of that, where he played Jack Frost, as well as, the typical Disney Santa moments, Christmas moments, all those Disney Channel original movies, etc. But I just, wanted to touch a little bit on Rugrats, just being very good, and it's still in, from what I've seen, and now other people can tell me one way or another it's not true, or if they disagree, and again, vet the experts, ask other people, because again, I'm just sharing like some ways like for you to all get in the holiday spirit and just, understand some other things that may not be yours, but at the same time trying to be respectful. Like, you do not get to do this stuff if you are not actually a practicing person. I just want to make that clear. Like, you do not get to do these traditions. It's just to understand these traditions a little bit better if you see it on TikTok or social media, and willingness to learn and understand another culture. So that's another thing in mind. Also, I do like how interesting this is a separate thing, because again, I am getting my Luxembourg citizenship, and they speak French and they do a lot of French traditions, and I'm also from the northeast part of France. I ancestors are mostly from, but the whole Papa Noel thing started with them. So I've been learning a few more traditions of my own, connecting, reconnecting, all that stuff, but it is just funny because inadvertently I've been doing a lot of that stuff my whole life without really even our family knowing any different. And I think that that just shows like how disconnected but reconnected or always connected we are. So as I conclude this week, just remember to check on your loved ones during this time, and happy holidays. We will be back in January. Hope you enjoyed this. Hit like, subscribe, comment below, and just please keep the Boss family in your thoughts right now.